Hello again, and welcome back to my wool thread paint YouTube channel. Today's little video tutorial is to show you how to make and attach the appliqué flowers for the cherry blossom blanket. They're scattered over the centre of the blanket. I made 24 of them, and they're in different colourways, different shades of pink. They're very, very simple to do, and although it is an option, I've put them on the blanket. You don't have to. I thought I would show you how I made them and how I attached them in a very easy way. So if I put that to one side, we'll start by making the flower, which is done in Stylecraft Special DK. This is colour fondant, and this one is, the petals are done in soft peach. Okay, so I'm going to make a slip knot, put it on my hook, and I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to turn that into a circle by slip stitching into the first chain. You can, of course, if you want to, start with a magic circle. It's just your own preference. I like the chains to start with. Then I'm going to chain 1. Now this chain 1 isn't going to count as a stitch, so I'm going to put 10 double crochet stitches into the centre. This is in UK terms, so if you want the US equivalent, that's a single crochet, but I'll just talk you through it in UK terms. I've done 1 double crochet, so you put your hook into the circle, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. Very simple. That's 2 I've done. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. And that's all you do for the centre. You slip stitch into the first stitch, and you can just double check that you've got 10. So if we count from where we finished, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we slip stitch into the first of the double crochet stitches and pull through. Cut your yarn and finish it off, and that's the centre. When you stitch your centre end in place, that will close that up as tightly as this one. So that's the centre. Now we're going to do 5 little petals, and I quite like to look for the stitch where I finished off and start in the one to the left of that. So I'm going to put my hook into that stitch and attach my yarn, and I'm going to chain 2. Now I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to put 3 treble stitches into that same stitch. So I'm going to do 1 treble stitches, yarn over, put your hook into the stitch, pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's the third one. And then I'm going to chain 2. And I'm going over to the next stitch, and I'm going to just put a slip stitch in there. And then chain 2, and I'm going to the next stitch and put in my 3 treble stitches. Apologies for that, that's my iPad just telling me something. That's 3, 1, 2, and then slip stitch into the next stitch. And there's 2 petals underway. Chain 2, 3 trebles in the next stitch, one, chain 2 and slip stitch into the next stitch, and so on. You get the idea. And it's a nice simple little flower. I won't bother finishing this one because I do have a finished one here. When you have done your last petal, so I've got 2 more to do on here, you just finish off with the last slip stitch and fasten off. So that is the little flower, and we're going to now stitch this one in place on the blanket. So now this is my little flower pinned where I want to stitch it down on the blanket, and this is what you would do with all 24 flowers. You would pin them in place, make sure you've got them exactly where you want them before you stitch them down. So I've just pinned this one to let you see what to do, and if you like, the best way to start off is on the back. Now what I've done is I've pushed my needle down through the middle of the flower so that I know exactly where it comes out on the back. I'm going to pull my needle all the way through because I want to start with a little double stitch on the back. Now what I do here is I leave a tail and then I make another stitch, and that holds it quite firmly, and then I can cut that tail, and then I can pull my needle back up through the center of the flower, so it's going to come up in the very center hole of the flower like that. I hope you can see that because I have so much bulk of the blanket now. Now I decided that I would use the stamens as the method of attaching the flower. So I decided to just make a nice big stitch. So I'm putting my needle back into the petal near the top, not right at the very top, but near the top. And so it's just a big straight stitch, nothing complicated about that. And then I'm going to bring my needle through in the center hole once more, and I'm going to do exactly the same with this petal. And yet again. And a fourth one. They don't have to be absolutely accurate for length. They don't have to be exactly the same as each other, because in real life the stamens are all different lengths. Keeps it natural looking. And that is the flower attached. Nothing complicated about that. I also decided, see if I can find a good example of it. I decided to add 1 or 2 little French knots onto the ends. This one has actually got more stamens in it, so you can do that if you like. But I decided to add little French knots onto the end of the straight stitches just to make them look more like stamens. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to bring my needle through at the top of one of the long stitches, and I'm going to wrap the yarn twice round the needle, keep it quite firmly attached. I'm going to bend it round and I'm going to put it back in, not the same hole that I came through, but just very slightly, just going over maybe 1 stitch of the petal, just so that it doesn't pull the knot through when you pull, and then you've just got to gently pull the whole thing through, and there's your knot on the end. Can you see that? And I'll do another one. Come through. You may be wondering if, you know, this looks like there's going to be a lot of long stitches on the back, and granted there are long stitches on the back, but they do tend to sink. They're not that noticeable, and anyway, it is the back of the blanket. And another one. One, two, put the needle in, and again pull, just go over one of the stitches of the petal so that it's not going to pull through, and then pull the whole lot through. I'll show you what would happen if you didn't go over one of the stitches. So if I just come through here and I go back down in exactly the same place where I came through, of course you've got quite big gaps in your crochet, so there is a chance that it might hold the knot, but there's also a chance that the whole thing would just pull through. That one, of course, just to be not awkward, but it has worked. It hasn't actually pulled through, but I would, just to be on the safe side, I would take it over a stitch. If you do embroidery, you may know that it's possible to do the straight stitch and the French knot at the same time to in one complete movement, but I think it's maybe easier to control it when you're doing it as two stitches. Just pull that last end through. I've got that, that's it. And that's this flower attached. And go back over to the back of the, you can see the long stitches on the back. To me, they sink, they disappear quite easily into the crochet, so it doesn't concern me. 2 or 3 stitches to make sure that it's not going to unravel, and that's your flower. That's the last of my flowers attached, and that's my blanket finished. So that's how I've attached. If you don't want to do that, I was a little bit concerned when I did decide to do it this way, in case the flowers would curl up when they were washed, but they didn't. They stayed nice and flat. But if you are at all concerned, you can thread your pale pink onto your needle and stitch around the flower as well. But as I say, I didn't, and I found that it was absolutely fine. So that's the little flowers for the cherry blossom blanket. Bye for now.